Alright, got a pretty cool design technique for you guys this week. I was experimenting the other day, just kind of goofing around, and it's kind of a variation of something I saw once before, but it's kind of cool. And what was cool about it is that it took shape right before my eyes. Now, of course, we're working in Photoshop, and it's right in front of us, but it's kind of cool when you do something, a certain transformation or something, and you see it take effect right then and there, and you're like, oh, wait, that's cool. So I wanted to share with you guys now. Here I have an image of this young woman. It's a female samurai. So I wanted to dress this image up a little bit just to kind of make it a little bit more fun, perhaps like almost like a movie poster type thing. So we're going to do that using some simple shapes. So I'm going to go over here to my toolbar and grab the rectangular shape tool here. Now up in the options bar, make sure we're using it as a shape tool and not a path tool. Then we're going to go over here into the document. I'm just going to go on and start on the outside here. I'm just going to draw a box right about here, just like that. Now, I'm going to go over here and grab my path selection tool. I'm just going to click and select it, and I'm going to press Option Command T. That would be Alt Control T on a PC, and that will set us up for a step and repeat that we're going to do. So holding down the Shift key, I'm just going to drag the duplicate over and just leave a little bit of space in between them here. Maybe a little bit more than that. Not quite that much. And then I'm going to press Enter. Then if I hold down the Shift Option Command, that would be Shift Alt Control on a Windows, and then continuously press the letter T, it'll repeat that shape the same distance. We'll just do one extra one there. And there we have that. So now let's go into the toolbar and grab our Path Selection tool. I'm going to drag and select all of those shapes. And we're going to press Command or Control T one more time. And we're going to control or right click directly on those shapes, and then we get the flyout menu here, and we're going to choose Skew. Now, if you take the top middle handle here and just skew this either left or right, it moves the top but leaves the bottom static. If you hold down the Option key or the Alt key when you do that, it'll move both the top and bottom, leaving the center in place. So I'm just going to move this over to right about here, right about there. Now let's do it right about here. Click OK, or press Enter rather, and there we have it. So I'm just going to nudge this shape over. Let's take those and just kind of move them over a little bit there. Pretty good. All right. Now what I want to do is over here in the Layers panel, so I'm just going to drag this out so we can see what's going on here. I'm going to go ahead and create a duplicate of that background layer and then take the duplicate and put it above that shape layer. And then I'm going to clip that image inside the shape layer. I'm going to hold down the Option key, and you see I get those overlapping circles in the layers. I'm just going to click in those, and it will clip that image inside there. Now, we didn't see any change because it's the same image on top of it, and they're aligned. So there you can see that the image is actually clipped in there, but with the background image on, it blends all together and doesn't look like anything's different. Here's where it takes shape and starts to look pretty cool. Selecting that topmost image that's clipped inside the shape layer, I'm going to press Command or Control T. Now, holding down the Shift and Option key, we're going to scale this out from the center, but watch how it takes shape as we scale it up. It's only because we're only seeing it through those clipped layers, so it has a really kind of interesting look that took shape right from the get-go there. So we'll scale it up to a certain size, we'll press Enter, and we've got something really interesting going on here. It's kind of cool. So let's take it a bit further. I'm going to select that shape layer. I'm going to double click in the blank area here and open up the layer styles, and we're going to apply a couple of styles here. Let's put a bevel and emboss on this. I'm going to unclick Use Global Light, and I'm just going to set the light pretty close to the center here. Not quite as big a bevel as I want. I'm going to take the size to around 2, so it makes it kind of subtle there. And let's even take the opacity of the highlight to around 65, so it's not so harsh there. Then I'm going to add a drop shadow on there. Probably not as harsh a drop shadow as I want. I'm going to set that to about 65, and I'm going to turn off global light on this one as well, because I don't want it controlling all my lighting aspects. So that looks pretty good. I think I'm going to make that bevel even smaller. Let's take it to 1. Give it a little bit more interest there. So I think that looks pretty good. And of course, it's a layer style. I can always come back and modify it if I want to change my mind later. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So we're starting to look pretty good here. It's coming along pretty well. Well, I want to change a few things about it. I don't want the lines going strictly all the way from the top to the bottom of the image and being cut off right at the edge here. I want it to kind of fade in for a little bit more interest. So on this shape layer, I'm going to pop a layer mask on there. Notice the shape layer is comprised of the color, and then it's masked by a vector mask. But you can also add a layer mask to the same layer, which will fade out the pixels that are clipped or that are masked inside the vector shapes. So two different masks on the same layer. Let's go over here and grab our gradient tool, of course, using the foreground to transparent. And with black set as my foreground color, I'm going to start at the bottom here. And let's make sure we're using the linear gradient. And I'm just going to start and just kind of fade in those lines on the top and the bottoms of the image. Now, notice what's going on here. We've got a little bit of a problem. Let's put that one from the side there. Up here on the top, the drop shadow from the layer style is creeping through there, and it's kind of like not looking too good on the top edge here. The reason for that is if you double click on the effects icon in your layer styles, right here, this option, Layer Mask Hides Effects, is off by default. So it's simply a matter of going back inside that layer style and checking that on, and notice that effect goes away. It looks pretty good. We'll click OK, and there we have that. Now, that mask, that layer mask I've got here, is kind of making this look like a double image here, and it's not looking all too good. So we're still in the layer mask. I want to keep the masking up here, but I want to bring back this part of the image. I'm going to take that same gradient tool, but this time using the radial gradient rather, and I'm just going to start at that eye and just drag outward. And it's going to bring back part of that image. Oop, a little bit more than I wanted it to. So it's bringing back part of that image a little bit, making it a little bit more interesting there. So you can see that's coming along, looking pretty good. You can also take your image that's masked or clipped inside there and move it around to get a very different effect altogether. So I'm just going to line this up so those eyes are a little bit more lined up. Just like that. So that's looking pretty good. So let's add a couple more things on this. I'm actually going to go ahead and colorize this entire image. I don't want it to look completely in full color. I want it to be monochromatic, because usually images like this, if you see them of a movie poster, they tend to look better as a monochromatic image. So I'm going to select that topmost layer, go into the adjustment layer menu and choose hue saturation. And right inside here I'm going to choose colorize. And the reason I like to use hue saturation is that in real time I can drag this hue slider over and see what color is going to look best right from the get-go there. So I think, of course, I'm going to go with a blue. Let's increase that saturation up a little bit. And boom, that looks pretty good. So it's coming along pretty good. It's looking pretty nice. Well, I want to add one more thing. I want it to have kind of a darker area down here in the bottom and lighter up here on the top. So I'm going to select this layer here, pop in a new layer, and grabbing that gradient tool, of course, we're going to make sure we're using the linear gradient. And starting with the black in my foreground, I'm just going to start here on the bottom and just drag upward a little bit, and that'll give it a little bit more darker area on the bottom of the image. Then on a new layer above that one, let's switch our gradient foreground to white, and we're going to take this and drag it down from the top here just a little bit, just like that. So it's giving me a little bit more enhanced lighting, and the coloring looks good. And we did that all from this. If I option click on the bottom here on this eyeball, that's what we started with. One simple image, and just by creating a few shapes, popping in a few layers, and adding some simple gradients, we were able to generate something much more interesting. And again, these are all on their own layer. If I want to go in here and just modify this, move this around, try a different arrangement, I can do that. I can unlock the background layer, nudge it around a little bit, try different configurations there. That's the beauty of it being on layers. It looks like a completely complex and flat image, but we have complete freedom to do anything and turn off anything. If I don't like the coloring, I can change that. Even if I don't want to change the coloring itself, it's an adjustment layer. I can go in here and try green. Maybe I want to go with more of a yellow, a really saturated yellow at that. All kinds of possibilities when everything's on its own layer. So experiment with yourself, see what kind of cool things you can do, and have fun. We'll see you next time.